I'm Christy Bilbrey. After working in a Senate press office, the White House, and corporate, I started my own business and realized none of those experiences taught me how to market myself. Thankfully, I discovered how brand storytelling and strategy could help me easily connect with others, promote my services, and grow my brand. I created the Business That Story Built podcast to help business leaders strengthen the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we tell others. Ready to take your mindset and messaging to the next level? Let's get started. Welcome back to the Personal Brand series. This is kind of a series within a series. I have 3 episodes that are all about brand storytelling inside of the Personal Brand series. This is the second of the 3 episodes, and today we're talking about the essential rules of storytelling. So if you didn't hear the last episode where I tell you how to rethink your brand story for success to grow faster, you may want to go back and listen to that episode. But today we're going to break down exactly how to get that done, step by step. What does it need to include and in what order? If you are listening, watching this on Spotify, or listening on Apple, if you would subscribe, rate, and review, that would be huge to help grow this audience, get it in front of more people. And if you are watching on YouTube, if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment below, then that would be huge as well. I really appreciate it. All right, so this is going to be a quick episode. We're going to look at this a couple of different ways, a really, really simple way to share a story effectively and what makes something a story or doesn't make it a story, and then a little bit more advanced way to tell a story. But I know if you're listening to this, you're ready for it. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first way to tell stories, going back centuries to ancient times, is the 3-act play format. So that's going to have a clear beginning, a clear middle, and a clear end. So unless you really need to have a cliffhanger, try to make sure that you have a clear resolution to your story. And why would you need a resolution? Because the other piece of story that's so important in order to even be considered a story is conflict. If you don't have conflict, you do not have a story. You may think, I hear stories all the time that people share, telling about their day and everything's wonderful. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that's actually not a story. They're just sharing an experience. They're basically reporting an experience, like maybe the press would, but typically the press is going to include things that have a conflict, which are real stories. So you need to make sure there is a conflict. And the way that Aristotle spoke about it was there's equilibrium, there's a disruption, and there's a return to equilibrium. And so 3-act plays, beginning, middle, and end, no cliffhanger if you can avoid it. And the reason for that is the human mind craves resolution. Doesn't that drive you nuts when you're watching something and they don't wrap it up? They don't tie up the loose ends? You're like, oh my gosh, this is driving me crazy. And if somebody continually does that and they don't really share, well, what happened? What was the final result? You may not want to pay attention to them in the future. So if you want people to pay attention, they need to get something out of it. There has to be a clear end and a reason for the story and what was the final result. So somebody else has said that with a 3-act play, the goal of the first act is to run the main character up the tree. The second act is to throw rocks at them. And the third act is to bring them back down from the tree. So this kind of leads into what I'm going to share next, which is something that I recommend, which is my 6-step story structure. Say that 5 times fast. And the first step of this is to paint a picture. This is so important when it comes to storytelling, because if your audience can't picture what you're telling them, they're going to zone out almost immediately. You have got to show them what's happening. When you're watching TV or a movie, they start a scene with what's called an establishing shot. I know this because my husband's really into videography. And so you'll start to notice, oh yeah, they will show either an aerial shot or an outside shot. Okay, what building are they in or what part of the country? They're out in a field somewhere or they're in a building from the 17th century, whatever it is, you're going to know, okay, this is where it takes place. And so you need to understand how to do that. You don't have to spend a long time. You can really capture this in 1 to 2 sentences. I mean, you could do this by saying what the date is, what the time of year is, what the geography is. Is this in the suburbs, in a city, in a rural area? Is it a hot day? Is it a summer night? What is something that can help people put a description in their head so they can begin to picture it? And it's okay if what they're picturing differs a little bit from what you're seeing from actually knowing what happened. As long as they're able to picture it, their brain is going to start following along. Why does this matter? So with storytelling, if you want to have a really deep imprint with someone, they will remember you better with a story. And it's important that they're able to picture it because then you're not only including their conscious, you're including their subconscious. How do I know that? When you watch stories, if you are watching something that's either really, a horror movie or an action movie, and your heart is starting to race and you're starting to get nervous for the person in the story, why is that? Because logically, this isn't real. You're not there. This is not happening to you. Why are you experiencing physiological changes because of this story? It's because you've bypassed your conscious mind and it's tapping into your subconscious, which just believes, hey, we're watching this play out. It's as though we're a part of it. And when your brain captures a memory, it's either something that happened to you or something that it feels like they experienced, the person, because they got to go through the experience as though it were them. How can they do that if they can't picture it? So this is critical first step. Where are we? Set the scene. All right, that's probably more than you wanted to know about that. The next is introduce conflict. You don't want to wait very long to introduce conflict. We know we need to have conflict. And if this is about your personal brand, then the reason we're even telling the story is to help people relate to you, why you think the way you do, why you act the way you do, what motivates you. Well, what motivates you is whatever has influenced you. So you look back at those pivotal moments that really influenced you. And what's funny is a lot of people think that it has to be all about their greatest accolades, but a lot of times it's either a failure, a regret. It could be something that you witnessed as a kid that had nothing to do with your profession, but it really shaped the way you view life, what matters to you, what you wanted to pursue, who you want to help, and why. And those are the types of things that your audience is going to connect with the most. And they're going to say, oh my gosh, wait till you hear this story. This is so amazing. You have to check this person out. It's going to captivate your audience. So those are the types of stories that you look for, and you want to zero in on, out of that experience, what was the pivotal moment? And that's your story. That's what you want to share. So you think about, if it wasn't a conflict, it was just something that maybe blew your mind and changed the way you think about something. Maybe it was something sad. Maybe it was seeing somebody have a huge success and you're like, that's it. That's what's missing. And it shifted something for you. So it's an obstacle or something to overcome, but it's something that people can relate to, something they really, really want, something they want to avoid, something they struggle with, a pain point. So you want something that's going to resonate with your audience, because we know, if you listen to that last episode on brand storytelling, we want to make sure that we end up with the meaning of all of this. And so you want to go into it knowing, where do I want this story to end up? What is the big takeaway? What action do I want them to take? And what is going to motivate them to do that? It's usually tapping into a universal emotion. And then you think about, how has that played out in my life? And why do I care so much about this? And that can help you remember, oh, here's an example of that. I'm going to share this. So you want to make sure that you have conflict, that you zero in on it, and that you get to it very quickly. It typically, in most stories, whether it's TV, movies, a book, listening to somebody on a stage, this is going to happen very quickly. They're going to set the scene. You're going to see what type of people are involved. I was just going about my day, and then boom, something happened. And that's where you hook your audience and they start to see something going wrong in your life. The third step that I like to include in my six-step story structure is engage the main character. So in a lot of stories, you'll notice that maybe something happens to the main character and it kind of throws them for a loop and they have to really think about it. Maybe they don't react the way they should or the way they ultimately do initially. That's okay because your audience will definitely be able to relate to that. And it's vulnerable, showing that you have struggles too. You're not perfect. And when you're vulnerable, you're inviting them in to trust you because you're opening up to them. So share what that looked like from the time something went wrong or there was a shift you needed to make. How did you respond? Maybe you responded perfectly. That's great. Share how it went down because they need to understand the mindset of the main character at the time, which I'm assuming a lot of the times with your personal brand is going to be you, not necessarily always the case. It could be you're sharing a story about somebody who you saw something happen to and that impacted you and shifted the way that you do things, the way that you think. But you want to share the journey of that main character to be willing to engage, to either reset the equilibrium if something bad happened, or to do something differently because something bad has been happening. So you want to share their response. Then the fourth step is amplify the pain. And you really don't have to make this stuff up. I feel like this is just the way life happens. Absolutely. In stories we watch and listen to, we can see, okay, just when I decided, hey, I'm going to do something really great. I'm going to stand up to this. I'm going to, really use self-discipline and make a change. What happens? It gets harder. It gets worse. And in the example of that 3-act play, the first act, you run the character up the tree. That's the conflict. The second act, you throw rocks at them. Somebody throws rocks at them. And that's where the pain is amplified. And that also helps your audience start to cheer you on, right? They're not just seeing somebody brag about the results. They're seeing somebody really go through something. So it's very important that you show how the pain got more intense and it's even more is at stake. And then the fifth, you want to make sure that you show the transformation. Again, this kind of comes back to what is the point of the story? Well, you want to show that the person at the beginning is different than the person at the end. Why does this matter with your audience and your personal brand? Because you're trying to communicate to your audience that they don't have to be stuck where they are now. They can change. They can transform. They've seen you when you were broken down or hurting. The pain was amplified. You were able to do it. They relate to that. So they're going to see in this next step of showing the transformation what would be possible. So let's say I relate to that pain point. I relate to what that person went through. How did they shift? And it doesn't just mean what was the end result. It means in their head and their heart, how are they feeling differently? How are they thinking about things differently? How are they choosing to act differently? Again, this is what's going to set you apart from every competitor. This is your unique approach and you're sharing why. Where does it all come from? This will really help your audience connect to you personally. And then the final step is the resolution and call to action. So like we said, with the 3 acts, you don't want to end on a cliffhanger. You've taken people on this journey, have a place where it ends. Even if it's not the final ending, you need to make sure in some way, shape, or form that you do try to tie it up with a bow, at least with, this portion has been resolved. I'm still working through this, but I was able to get to this point here. And basically, you're sharing, I can help you get to this point here. The call to action is the second part of that. And that's, again, the reason that you told the story to begin with. You don't want to go starting a story and searching for where to land it. You want to start before you ever determine which story you're going to tell. You want to know, what is my call to action? What do I want to help inspire people to do next? And what does that look like? What emotion is that connected to? What pain point is that connected to? how do my experiences relate in a way that will resonate with my audience? So you're going to come up with that before you come up with anything else. And then you want to make sure it's very clear that you share the transformation, you share the resolution, and you have that call to action very specifically. That is a successful story. So it's not necessarily just about getting my audience to do something. You really want to inspire what's best in them. You want to inspire that to come out that this is a purpose worth pursuing, that it matters, that it can make a difference. Help them get excited about doing whatever you're talking about. And that is something powerful that happens with great storytelling. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. Until next time, this is The Business That's Story Built. How are you growing your brand? Are you targeting the right people, developing the right relationships, and consistently getting the visibility and credibility that you need to grow your business? Whether you need a plan that's small or large in scale, our PR firm and consulting services can design and implement what your business needs to grow. To schedule a free call and learn how we can partner with you, email Christie@ChristieBilbrey.com. That's CHRISTIE@CHRISTIEBILBREY.com.